This is a Vivekananda Kendra Kanyakumari recording. All recordings of Vivekananda Kendra are in the public domain. For more information and also to volunteer, please visit www.vkendra.org. My India, the India Eternal by Swami Vivekananda. Read by Noina Chatterjee. Chapter 5. Problems of Women.
The ideal of Indian womanhood. O India, forget not that the ideal of thy womanhood is Sita, Savitri, Damayanti. The ideal of womanhood in India is motherhood, that marvelous, unselfish, all-suffering, ever-forgiving mother. It is unfair to judge women in the East by the Western standards. In the West, woman is the wife, and in the East, she is the mother. In India, the woman was the visible manifestation of God, and that her whole life was given up to the thought that she was a mother. And to be a perfect mother, she must be chaste. Our women are not so learned, but they are more pure. To all women, every man, save her husband, should be as her son. To all men, every woman, save his own wife, should be as his mother. When I look about me and see what you call gallantry, my soul is filled with disgust. Not until you learn to ignore the question of sex and to meet on a ground of common humanity will your women really develop. Until then they are playthings, nothing more. All this is the cause of divorce. Your men bow low and offer a chair, but in another breath they offer compliments. They say, "Oh madam, how beautiful are your eyes! What right have they to do this? How dare a man venture so far? And how can you women permit it?" Such things develop the less noble side of humanity. They do not tend to nobler ideals. We should not think that we are men and women, but only that we are human beings, born to cherish and to help one another. Neglect of women, cause of India's downfall. In India, there are two great evils: trampling on the women and grinding the poor through caste restrictions. Here in America, men treat their women as well as can be desired, and hence they are so prosperous, so learned, so free, and so energetic. But why is it that we are slavish, miserable, and dead? The answer is obvious. Without Shakti, which is power, there is no regeneration for the world. Why is it that our country is the weakest and the most backward of all countries? Because Shakti is held in dishonor there. Unfair to discriminate between the sexes. If it is very difficult to understand why in this country so much difference is made between men and women, whereas the Vedanta declares that one and the same conscious self is present in all beings. You always criticize the women. But say, what have you done for their uplift? Is there any sex distinction in Atma, the self? Out with the differentiation between man and woman. All is Atma. Women must be respected. Can you better the condition of your women? Then there will be hope for your well-being. Otherwise, you will remain as backward as you are now. Do you mean to say that the divinity back of woman can ever be cheated? It never was and it never will be. It always asserts itself. Unfailingly, it detects fraud. It detects hypocrisy. Unerringly, it feels the warmth of truth, the light of spirituality, the holiness of purity. Such purity is absolutely necessary if real spirituality is to be attained. There is no chance for the welfare of the world unless the condition of woman is improved. It is not possible for a bird to fly on only one wing. Hence, in the Ramakrishna incarnation, the acceptance of a woman as the Guru, hence his practicing in the woman's garb and frame of mind, hence too his preaching the motherhood of women as representations of the Divine Mother. Hence it is that my first endeavor is to start a mutt for women. This mutt shall be the origin of Gargis and Maitreys, and women of even higher attainments than these. We have seen in Sri Ramakrishna how he had this idea of divine motherhood in every woman, of whatever caste she might be or whatever might be her worth. It is because I have seen this that I ask you all so earnestly to do likewise and open girls' schools in every village and try to uplift them. If the women are raised, then their children will by their noble actions glorify the name of the country. Then will culture, knowledge, power and devotion awaken in the land. In what scriptures do you find statements that women are not competent for knowledge and devotion? In the period of degradation, when the priests made the other castes incompetent for the study of the Vedas, they deprived the women also of all their rights. Otherwise, you will find that in the Vedic or Upanishadic age of Maitreyi, Gargi, and other ladies of revered memory have taken the places of rishis through their skill in discussing about Brahman. In an assembly of 1,000 Brahmins, who were all erudite in the Vedas, Gargi boldly challenged Yajnavalkya in a discussion about Brahman. Since such ideal women were entitled to spiritual knowledge, why shall not the women have the same privilege now? What has happened once can certainly happen again. History repeats itself. All nations have attained greatness by paying proper respect to women. That country and that nation which do not respect women have never become great, nor will ever be in the future. The principal reason why your race has so much degenerated is that you have no respect for these living images of Shakti. Manu says, where women are respected, there the gods delight, and where they are not, their all works and efforts come to naught. There is no hope of rise for that family or country where there is no estimation of women, where they live in sadness. For this reason, they have to be raised first. Education can solve women's problems. The Indian women have many and grave problems, but none that are not to be solved by that magic word, education. Educate your women first and leave them to themselves. Then they will tell you what reforms are necessary for them. With such an education, women will solve their own problems. They have all the time been trained in helplessness, servile dependence on others, and so they are good only to weep their eyes out at the slightest approach of a mishap or danger. Along with other things, they should acquire the spirit of valor and heroism. In the present day, it has become necessary for them also to learn self-defense. See how grand was the Queen of Jhansi. See that every one knows something by which she can earn a living in case of need. To make a beginning in women's education, our Hindu women easily understand what chastity means, because it is in their heritage. Now, first of all, intensify that ideal within them above everything else, so that they may develop a strong character by the force of which, in every stage of their life, whether married or single, if they prefer to remain so, they will not be in the least afraid even to give up their lives rather than flinch an inch from their chastity. It is little heroism to be able to sacrifice one's lives for the sake of one's ideals, whatever that ideal may be. Along with that, they should be taught sciences and other things which would be of benefit not only to them but to others as well. And knowing this, they would easily learn these things and feel pleasure in doing so. I should very much like our women to have your own intellectuality, but not if it must be at the cost of purity. Sita, the ideal of Indian womanhood. Sita is typical of India, the idealized India. The question is not whether she ever lived, whether the story is history or not. We know that the ideal is there. There is no other Pauranika story that has so permeated the whole nation, so entered into its very life, and has so tingled in every drop of blood of the race as the ideal of Sita. Sita is the name in India For everything that is good, pure and holy, everything that in woman we call womanly. If a priest has to bless a woman, he says, "Be Sita." If he blesses a child, he says, "Be Sita." They are all children of Sita and are struggling to be Sita, the patient, the all-suffering, the ever-faithful, the ever-pure wife. Sita was a true Indian by nature. She never returned injury. What to speak of Sita? You may exhaust the literature of the world that is past, and I may assure you that you will have to exhaust the literature of the world of the future before finding another Sita. Sita is unique. That character was depicted once and for all. There may have been several Ramas, perhaps, but never more than one Sita. She is the very type of the true Indian woman. For all the Indian ideals of a perfected woman have grown out of that one life of Sita. And here she stands these thousands of years, commanding the worship of every man, woman and child throughout the length and breadth of the land of Aryavarta. There she will be always, this glorious Sita, purer than purity itself, all patience and all suffering. She who suffered that life of suffering without a murmur, she the ever-chaste and ever-pure wife, she the ideal of the people, the ideals of the God, the great Sita. A national God she must always remain. All our mythology may vanish, even our Vedas may depart, and our Sanskrit language may vanish forever. But so long as there will be 5 Hindus living here, even if only speaking the most vulgar words, there will be the glory of Sita present. Mark my words, Sita has gone into the very vitals of our race. She is there in the blood of every Hindu man and woman. We are all children of Sita. Any attempt to modernize our women, if it tries to take our women away from that ideal of Sita, is immediately a failure, as we see every day. The women of India must grow and develop in the footprints of Sita, and that is the only way. I know that the race that produced Sita, even if it is only dreamt of her, has a reverence for woman that is unmatched on the earth. The ideal of the modern woman, Sharoda Devi. Our mother is a vast reservoir of spiritual energy, though outwardly calm like the deep ocean. Her advent marks the beginning of a new era in the history of India. The ideals lived and taught by her would not only spiritualize the efforts for the emancipation of women in India, but also influence and penetrate into the minds and hearts of women all over the world. Motherhood represented the highest expression of womanhood, especially in India. It is an innate instinct in every woman, the signs of which might be discovered even in a little girl. With the Holy Mother as the center of inspiration, a mutt is to be established on the eastern bank of the Ganga. As brahmacharins and sadhus will be trained in this mutt here, so in the other mutts also, brahmacharins and sadhvis will be trained. You have not yet understood the wonderful significance of mother's life, none of you. But gradually you will know. Without Shakti, there is no regeneration for the world. Why is it that our country is the weakest and the most backward of all countries? Because Shakti is held in dishonor there. Mother has been born to revive that wonderful Shakti in India, and making her the nucleus, once more will Gargis and Maitreys be born into the world. Dear brother, you understand little now, but by degrees you will come to know it all. Hence it is in her mutt that I want first. Without the grace of Shakti, nothing is to be accomplished. What do I find in America and Europe? The worship of Shakti, the worship of power. Yet they worship her ignorantly through sense gratification. Imagine then, what a lot of good they will achieve who will worship her with all purity. In a sattvika spirit, looking upon her as their mother, I am coming to understand things clearer every day. My insight is opening out more and more. Hence, we must first build a mutt for mother. First mother and mother's daughters, then father and father's sons. Can you understand this? To me, mother's grace is 100,000 times more valuable than father's. Mother's grace, mother's blessings are all paramount to me. Please pardon me. I'm a little bigoted here as regards to mother. If but mother orders, her demons can work anything. Brother, before proceeding to America, I wrote to mother to bless me. Her blessings came, and at one bound I cleared the ocean. There, you see, in this terrible winter, I'm lecturing from place to place and fighting against odds, so that funds may be collected for mother's mart. Baburam's mother must have lost her sense owing to old age, and that is why she is about to worship Durga in the earthen image, ignoring the living one. Brother, faith is very difficult to achieve. Brother, I shall show how to worship the living Durga, and then only shall I be worthy of my name. I shall be relieved when you will have purchased a plot of land and established there the living Durga, the mother. Till then, I am not returning to my native land. As soon as you can do that, I shall heave a sigh of relief after sending the money. Do you accomplish this festival of Durga of mine by making all the necessary arrangements? Girish Ghosh is adoring the mother splendidly. Blessed he is, and blessed are his followers. Brother, often enough, when I am reminded of the mother, I ejaculate, what after all is Rama? Brother, that is where my fanaticism lies, I tell you. Of Ramakrishna, you may aver, my brother, that he was an incarnation or whatever else you may like, but fie on him who has no devotion for the mother. Swamiji's ideas on a monastery for women. There is no hope of rise for that family or country where there is no estimation of women, where they live in sadness. For this reason, they have to be raised first, and an ideal mat has to be started for them. I never objected to the worship of women who are the living embodiment of Divine Mother, whose external manifestations appealing to the senses have maddened men, but whose internal manifestations such as knowledge, devotion, discrimination and dispassion make man omniscient, of unfailing purpose and a knower of Brahman. Saisha prasanna varda nringa bhavati muktaye. She, when pleased, becomes propitious and the cause of the freedom of man. Without propitiating the mother by worship and obeisance, not even Brahma and Vishnu have the power to elude her grasp and attain to freedom. Therefore, for the worship of these family goddess, in order to manifest the Brahman within them, I shall establish the women's mat. Even now there are women disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. With their help I shall start this mat. The Holy Mother will be their central figure, and the wives and daughters of the devotees of Sri Ramakrishna will be its first inmates. For they will easily appreciate the usefulness of such a mat. After that, following their example, many householders will help in this noble work. No great work has been done in the world without sacrifice. Who, on seeing the tiny sprout of the banyan, can imagine that in course of time it will develop into a gigantic banyan tree? At present, I shall start the mat in this way. Later on, you will see that after a generation or two, people of the country will appreciate the worth of this mat. My women disciples will lay down their lives for it. Casting off fear and cowardice, you can also be helpers in this noble mission and hold this high ideal before all. You will see, it will shed its lustre over the whole country in time. On the other side of the Ganga, a big plot of land will be acquired, where unmarried girls or brahmacharini widows will live. Devout married women will also be allowed to stay now and then. Men will have no concern with this mat. The elderly sadhus of the mat will manage the affairs of this mat from a distance. There shall be a girls' school attached to this women's mat, in which religious scriptures, literature, Sanskrit, grammar, and even some amount of English would be taught. Other matters such as sewing, culinary art, rules of domestic work, and upbringing of children will also be taught, while japa, worship, meditation, etc., shall form an indispensable part of the teaching. Those who will be able to live here permanently, renouncing home and family ties, will be provided with food and clothing from this mat. Those who will not be able to do that will be allowed to study in this mat as day scholars. With the permission of the head of the mat, the latter will be allowed even to stay in the mats occasionally, and during such stay will be maintained by the mat. The elder brahmacharinis will take charge of the training of the girl students in brahmacharya. After 5 or 6 years training in this mat, the guardians of the girls may marry them. If deemed fit for yoga and religious life, with the permission of their guardians, they will be allowed to stay in this mat, taking the vow of celibacy. These celibate nuns will in time be the teachers and preachers of the mats. In villages and towns, they will open centers and strive for the spread of female education. Through such devout preachers of characters, there will be the real spread of female education in the country. So long as the students will remain in association with this mat, they must observe brahmacharya as the basic idea of this mat. Spirituality, sacrifice, and self-control will be the motto of the pupils of this mat, and service or seva dharma the vow of their life. In view of such ideal lives, who will not respect and have faith in them? If the life of the women of this country be molded in such fashion, then only will there be the reappearance of such ideal characters as Sita, Savitri, and Gargi. To what straits the strictures of local usages have reduced the women of this country, rendering them lifeless and inert, you could understand if only you visited the Western countries. You alone are responsible for this miserable condition of the women, and it rests with you also to raise them again. Therefore, I say, set to work. They must be given education and left to themselves. After that, they will act as they think best. Even after marriage and entering the world, the girls educated as above will inspire their husbands with noble ideals and be the mothers of heroic sons. But there must be this rule that the guardians of the students in the women's mat must not even think of marrying them before they attain the age of 15. These learned and accomplished girls will never be in want of bridegrooms. Society nowadays does not follow the texts recommending child marriage, nor will do so in future. Men, hands off. Educate your women first and leave them to themselves. Then they will tell you what reforms are necessary for them. Our right of interference is limited entirely to giving education. Women must be put in a position to solve their own problems in their own way. No one can or ought to do this for them, and our Indian women are as capable of doing it as any in the world. Liberty is the first condition of growth. It is wrong, 1,000 times wrong, if any of you dare to say, I will work out the salvation of this woman or child. I am asked again and again what I think of the widow problem and what I think of the woman question. Let me answer once for all. Am I a widow that you ask me that nonsense? Am I a woman that you ask me that question again and again? Who are you to solve women's problems? Are you the Lord God that you should rule over every widow and every woman? Hands off. They will solve their own problems. To the women of this country, I would say exactly what I say to the men. Believe in India and in our Indian faith. Be strong and hopeful and unashamed. And remember that with something to take, Hindus have immeasurably more to give than any other people in the world. Where is our Gaudma? We want 1,000 much mothers with that noble stirring spirit. What was wanted was not a man, but a woman, a real lioness, to work for the Indians, women specially. We want both men and women. There is no distinction of sex in the soul. We want thousands of men and thousands of women who will spread like wildfire from the Himalayas to Cape Comorin, from the North Pole to the South Pole, all over the world. It is no use indulging in child's play, neither is there time for it. Let those who have come for child's play be now off, while there is time, or they will surely come to grief. We want an organization. Off with laziness, spread, run like fire to all places. Who will give the world light? Sacrifice in the past has been the law. It will be, alas, for ages to come. The earth's bravest and best will have to sacrifice themselves for the good of many, for the welfare of all. Buddhas by the hundred are necessary with eternal love and pity. Religions of the world have become lifeless mockeries. What the world wants is character. The world is in need of those whose life is one burning love, selfless. That love will make every word seem like thunderbolt. Bold words and bolder deeds are what we want. Awake, awake, great ones. The world is burning with misery. Can you sleep? With 500 men, the conquest of India might take 50 years. With as many women, not more than a few weeks.
End of chapter 5. My India, the India Eternal by Swami Vivekananda. This is a Vivekananda Kendra Kanyakumari recording. All recordings of Vivekananda Kendra are in the public domain. For more information and also to volunteer, please visit www.vkendra.org.